the worst bottle opener ever. If I could do it the old-fashioned way. Whoa! Cheers, everybody. Here's to 2 years of live streaming as of today. No cheese today, but I have some special snacks. I've got treats. And this is the beer that I drink most often. It's Monteith's Black Beer. Happy anniversary! Hopefully this will not be as plagued by technical difficulties as my first live stream 2 years ago. Holy shit, that was so bad. This is an adult stream. I am drinking alcohol, and there may possibly be adult language and adult themes, so to be warned. Yeah, midweek stream like I used to do. Yeah, I got a Facebook notification saying, you know, this was this post that I made from 2 years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, that was today. I hope everybody's having a great day as well. In case you're wondering, as a true dark beer aficionado, this is not chilled in any refrigerator. This has just been sitting on the floor of my room, and it's about probably about 18 degrees centigrade. Adult themes. So today, instead of cheese, I've got a selection of New Zealand snacks, which I thought you might find interesting. So this is the confectionery that was just sitting next to me at the supermarket checkout while I was waiting to buy my groceries, and I thought, this is probably something that viewers would find interesting. What do Kiwis eat? Yeah, it's a party noise. Party noises. Hey, Bob. Darren, Kikastook. Yeah, that is how you drink a dark beer. Okay, so first up we have the classic flake. Now the flake is a milk chocolate kind of shredded and stuck into a bar, and it used to have these really, really cheesy, like overly romantic, sort of epic, like a romance novel, trashy romance novel ads on TV. But the song, I can't help but sing the song every time I have a bit of a flake. So it's only the crumbliest, flakiest chocolate tastes like chocolate never tasted before. And you belt that out at the top of your lungs, and everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. So basically, it's just they've just squeezed out milk chocolate into a rivulet, which they've collected into the shape of a bar, which adds about like 30% air. Hey, thanks, Michael. Thanks, man. Yeah, so it's basically just thin chocolate in a bar. All right. It is a surprise. Oh, nice, you can get them in Florida. Excellent. So that's from Cadbury, I believe. Yep. Next up on Cadbury's list of confectionery is the picnic bar. I'm not going to eat the whole thing, obviously, because, yeah, no. So the picnic bar consists of a whole mess of things, really. It's an ugly chocolate bar, which is actually part of their marketing. They say it's an ugly chocolate bar, but it tastes good. And it is. So this mutant mess that literally looks like a chode is, well, let's just bite into it and see. It has a dangerous mouthfeel. So it consists of milk chocolate on the outside with a biscuity rice bubble wafer on the inside with caramel and whole bits of peanut. Kiwis tend to like whole peanut, not peanut butter, mixed with their chocolate. So we don't like all the sort of peanut butter snacks that you guys like over in the States. We like whole peanuts in chocolate. Okay. Whew. Yeah, Cadbury's British, so yeah, their products are basically everywhere. You're working on a dungeon. I was actually going to talk about dungeon design because it's been really, really on my mind. Exactly, it is a really ugly bar. And I've had some people asking me about, helping them with their campaigns. By the way, I'm always happy to help out anybody planning encounters and stuff for their campaign. I just basically need basic information, and then I'll just riff ideas and bounce them off you until you go, okay. Okay, so next on our Cadbury lineup is the Perky Nana. Now this is, I don't know if they'd even try marketing this to Americans. It's chocolate covered banana taffy, essentially. And the banana flavor is really artificial and really it's like a really syrupy banana milkshake, thick shake. But I love these things. This one has obviously been squished and melted. Man, I've never seen one of this mangled before. Right. So yeah, it's basically an artificial banana flavored food. Yeah. Yep. I actually quite like these. I like very artificial banana flavor. Exactly. Wow. Also, Kiwi confectionery tends to be very sweet. Sweet. There's not a single ounce of savoury in that whatsoever. Yeah. Alright, next up in the Cadbury lineup, we have the Pinky Bar. It says 50% less fat. Like, that makes it more healthy. It's like 1000% sugar. Great, yeah. Okay, so this is essentially a chocolate-covered strawberry marshmallow with a little bit of raspberry-type syrup spattered on the outside, then covered in chocolate. Pink. It's if possible, it's sweeter than a chocolate fish. Chocolate fish basically are exactly like this. Yeah, not my favorite. What I didn't get was a crunchy bar, which is essentially a caramelized expanded sugar toffee, which is covered in chocolate, because I don't like crunchies. Okay, next up we have Nestle, the Pixie Caramel. Now the Pixie Caramel is kind of just caramel taffy, if you can put it that way. Typically these are served frozen, and I've had these in the fridge, but it's so hot here at the moment that everything's like, hey, thanks Adrian, welcome to Gold Dragon. So everything is basically just melting in my hands as we go. Alright, here goes. They call it Pixie Caramel, the longer lasting chew. And it's supposed to be chewy. But, too much pinky energy is dangerous. But, we have another bar in New Zealand called the K Bar, which hasn't got any chocolate on it. It's not like any sort of taffy you know. And they're chewy as hell. That is quite chewy. It's not like, it just doesn't dissolve very fast. Last but not least, things I do for you people. Is the classic Milky Bar. This is also by Nestle. Nestle is an abhorrent company that needs to die because they don't think everybody in the world has a right to clean drinking water. They think it's perfectly fine to make everybody pay for it. So they can get fucked. Enemies of humanity. I wouldn't say everybody that works in the company is bad, but certainly their executive body are evil. No two ways about it. Alright. It is essentially just white chocolate. That's it. White milk chocolate. Oh. I actually really like Milky Bars. The drink was dark beer. The darkest of beers. It's not as strong as you'd think. It's only 5.2% alcohol. Right, Kiwi is the term for New Zealanders. Yeah, Kiwi is what we call ourselves, and we're happy for other people to call us that. Like Australians called Aussies, or you could call them kangaroos. And Brit is for British, or you could call them Poms. We call them Poms over here because they tended to go red in the sun, like a pomegranate. 5.2% is just water. Not really. Wow, thanks, Jeremy. The Fire Giant video. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So the topic of today is fresh developments on the channel, which provide an extra avenue for the channel to get out there. So there's a service called Viewer Prime, which I'm going to be uploading my videos to. And it's a subscription service. You pay $2.99 US per month. And you get access to all of their content. And anybody who signs up using the code that I provide for my videos gets all of their content, gets my content ad-free. I think it's ad-free. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's ad-free because it's a subscription service. And yeah, that provides direct revenue to me. So I get $1 per subscriber per month. And everybody who subscribes to that gets all of my content as soon as I upload it. So they get my early content, just like Patreon subscribers and YouTube subscribers get my early content. And also, because it's not YouTube, I have a little bit more leeway in what I can do. So that's pretty cool. But it won't include like live streams and stuff. It's just all of my back catalogue of stuff and all my new stuff, and the viewers there will be getting stuff way in advance of that. Also, it allows me the time and extra revenue to pay my editor to do a better job of the editing. So you'll get Fire Giant or the Giant series sort of quality of videos. But that's coming up. I literally just got off the phone with California this morning talking to them about that. And the thing of that platform is it's kind of invitation only. So they look for people who have a proven track record of uploading content on a regular basis. That's of a standard of quality, which I do. So that's good. Yeah, 2 years. Oh, yep, I would never insult Hershey's chocolates and cream bars. A white chocolate bar without anything. Whoa, that's disgusting. Yeah, it's not to everybody's taste. Kiwis are, yeah, we're kind of primitive. My editor, you've met my editor, that's Ian. He appears on some of the live streams. Yeah. So shout out to Ian. He is Red NZ Blue on YouTube. Go and check out his videos. He talks about, he's very humorous actually, he's much funnier than I am. And his videos cover all sorts of topics on the sort of esoteric nature of D&D, magic, the planes, gods, that sort of thing. Next on the Spelljammer series is I'm going to be talking about actually running a Spelljammer campaign. So how to operate as the DM when the players just decide to go off on their own on a random tangent and land on some planet somewhere, and exactly how you handle that as a DM. Butyric acid to their chocolate? Really? I had no idea. I honestly can't say that I've noticed any huge difference in Hershey's chocolate. Yeah, Ian's restaurant video is really good. So, so the sort of things that I'll talk about with campaign planning is how I go about making campaign plans, because I'm well known for running campaigns just off the seat of my pants. I don't pre-plan anything. I just run it according to what the players are doing at the table. And there's a certain way of doing that makes it extremely easy to run any sort of a campaign you want, and the players can basically go and do anything. So it's a true sandbox game where you're dropping encounters and things into the sandbox when it's appropriate for them to reach that point in the game. Have a good sleep, Cormac. I talked about Baldur's Gate 3 in the last video, the last live stream actually. Is there a significant population of Maori gamers? Yeah, absolutely. I think the Maori people make up about 15 to 20% of the population of the country, I think. And the majority of youth would be gamers, I'd say. It's true. The Saturday of Wednesday, the Saturday of New Zealand. Yes, I'm going to do a video on a lot of different Spelljammer races, including the Gif, the Scrow. There's some space halflings as well, which only get a mention in one source. But in my halfling video, which I'm currently researching, oh boy, do you not know everything about halflings. Ian and I were having a chat about halflings this morning, and he was like, what? Really? Really? I did not know that. And it was like, meh, yeah, I didn't know it either. So much information about halflings. Because, okay, just to give you an example, this and this is all of my reading material that I have to read through to do just the basic stuff on the halfling video. That is why it's so few and far between, and it's like the closer I get to doing the major playable races like elves and humans and stuff, the more research like that I have to do. So that's why I'm like, yeah, I'll get around to doing those videos, and they take literally a week of research to do. And there is a lot of information in there that people just don't know about halflings and kenders and all the other subraces. They don't even know what the subraces are and why they exist. So, yeah. The astral and the ethereal are both transitive planes. So you need to cross over from the astral into the prime material world and then into the ethereal plane. You can't go between the two unless you die. The what? What? Kenda. Yes, Kenda are halflings officially. You've never met any islanders that do tabletop gaming. Man, okay. Well, you need to get out more. Second, what about the second halfling video? We've got one halfling video, yes. But what about second halfling video? True. Halflings and humans are not related. Shall I tell you? Shall I tell you where halflings come from? Because this is going to blow your mind a little bit. Before, the halflings had gods. So before they were adopted by Yondala, they were essentially what half-elves are to elves and humans, halflings are to dwarves, gnomes, and elves. So your basic tall foot or tall fellow halfling or harefoot halfling, and the harefoot halfling make up the majority of their family lines. So the basic halfling, harefoot halfling, is a half elf, half gnome. That's a halfling. Then, if you add more elvish stock, you get a tall fellow halfling. If you add more dwarvish stock, you get a stout halfling. That's why they've got infravision and the ability to track things underground. So, that's the halflings. That's the basic 3 halfling subgroups. Then, the halflings were adopted by Yondala, who didn't have worshippers, and she saw that the worshippers made other gods mighty, and she was small but opinionated. And then she met a halfling called Little Man. And Little Man essentially became her prophet that took her religion to all the other halflings everywhere. He's like a folklore figure, and he's common to folklore, religion, and stuff of the halflings. But halflings were so separated and hidden away because they were hunted by all the monstrous races because they taste delicious, that they had no gods protecting them, that they were scattered and few and far between, living in burrows and barely ever registering on anybody's awareness that they even existed. When Yondala approached them and said, I will protect you if you give me worship, they said, okay. Ghostwise halflings, yeah, there's specific, so halflings get really, really specific. So, for instance, Yondala is not known as Yondala to all the different halflings. In fact, you can go from one village 10 miles down the road to another halfling village, and Yondala will have another name. Not only that, but she'll have a different aspect of her religious significance in their lives. Their family culture outweighs any sort of broad cultural thing across the entire race of halflings. So they also have not just the halfling pantheon, but also like 100 different household gods. So they'll have a god of yeast in their household and a god of flour and stuff. They're like little garden gnome statues and things like that. They'll actually pay homage to, the god of turnips, this turnip crop and things. And they're all different. So they're endlessly fascinating. So you can come up with any sort of little quirks and things. Halflings are delicious. Yes, it's true. Yeah, Little Man is essentially their heroic paragon consummate halfling. So he embodied all of the traits that Yondala fell in love with their race. She was looking and looking for a year and a day for a specific race to worship her, and she couldn't take anything from other races, and she couldn't create a race on her own because she didn't have the power to do so. So what she was looking for was essentially a subgroup, and what she came across was essentially the Fey half-elves, which is the halflings, and she became their patron and therefore elevated herself as the head of their religion. D&D confectionaries, licorice black dragons, sugar flame skulls, strawberry jelly cubes, chocolate drow ears, cherry red dragon pops, and cone of mint. I like it. Arise, god of yeast! Yeah, exactly. So the Dark Sun, the Athasian halflings are essentially, they're regressed to cannibal pygmies, essentially. Yeah, so, and across different worlds. There is one world in there's a specific group of Spelljammer halflings as well. And there's also a bunch of halflings who are the dominant race on their world with no other intelligent sapient races there. So no humans, no elves, just halflings. But that's very unusual. For the most part, halflings prefer to live on the fringe of human settled lands and stuff, but they don't encroach on other people's property. They don't fight amongst themselves, and they don't invade other people. If they are attacked, they will resort back to essentially forest assassin tactics, using their superior skills with missile weapons and stealth. They don't go one-on-one with anybody. Cursed by the god of yes. If a halfling mated with a human, it's essentially a human. A human with a little bit of fey blood. So it would almost be indistinguishable from a half-elf. Except they might have hairy feet. No, halflings don't incite war. So they always seek to negotiate and be good neighbours, essentially. That's how they've survived. They survive by making allies out of stronger forces. And I mean, if the halfling village is being attacked, everybody jumps in and helps. Cursed by the god of sugar. Well, I have all sorts of things here for you. Man, I have to finish off all of these chocolate bars now. I suppose I could put them in a bag and throw them in the freezer. You're officially starting your Dragon Heist game this week. If you felt like throwing some more slice of life into the big city, let me know. Sure. Yeah. A quarterling. Yeah. It'll be a dire halfling, essentially. So it'll be a short human. Except they would register as having fey blood. So they're a little bit halfling, a little bit human. Well, I am a dire halfling. This is exactly what a dire halfling looks like. Except my hair's not as curly as it should be. Halflings like to be by humans because halflings like arable cleared land on the edges of forest and things like that. Rolling hills and forests and things are where humans like to grow their crops and farm animals and things, and halflings like those areas too. And because halflings can essentially coexist with other races, they go for the best arable land. But they don't want to step on anybody's toes, so they basically stick to the frontiers and things like that. And they'll have, inside human cities, they'll have neighborhoods of halflings. So they blend, but they also have their own strong cultural traditions and households and things like that. And also, don't forget, halflings are really good at adventuring and going around and discovering things. Like, they can crawl into tombs that other people can't get access to because of their size. Yeah, they are farmers. They're agrarian by nature. They are very much homebodies. Adventuring is more common in halflings than you would think, going by like the Lord of the Rings movies and stuff. Yeah, middle of the week. That's right. It's an anniversary live stream. In the tradition of when I started out, I used to do 2 live streams a week. Yes, I did hear about that. Yeah, the ancient yeast from old beer. I imagine it tasted pretty normal. Halflings live to 150 years. At least, according to the book, the complete book of Gnomes and Halflings, which I consider to be the authority on halflings, unless it's superseded elsewhere by specific things for different editions. But halflings, as far as I'm concerned, are stout, strong-limbed people with large feet, which have hair on them, leathery soles that are pretty much as good as wearing moccasins, and they have fairly large hands in proportion to their body size, fairly large head. They've got rounded nose, pudgy, childlike, cherub-like sort of features, broad. They've got curly hair. They're portly, and they carry most of their weight around their middle, and they're pretty agile, very dexterous. They've got a bonus to the dexterity because their fingers are very agile, as are their toes. Yes, halflings have big, hairy feet. Anybody who tells you different. I would basically say that John Shindahedi, who was the art director for Wizards of the Coast during the 4th edition years, so he was basically the art director opposite to Chris Perkins was like the creative director, and John Shindahedi was the art director. And he did like this thing where he was kind of like, I don't think he actually did get full feedback on what the halflings were because he had this idea of like he hired different concept companies to put forward concept art of a different look to halflings that stepped away from the Tolkien-esque version of halflings. And the one big thing that they did was they wanted the halflings to look distinct from humans when they weren't standing next to a human, right? So not just small humans. And the problem with that whole thing started because 3.5 edition again stepped away from the portly, florid cheeked, sort of cherub-like halflings of earlier editions and made them more, roguish, lithe, with sort of elongated skulls and stuff, and braided hair and things, and they had this sort of nomadic and slightly fey look to them, because they were trying to get away from the Tolkien-esque version of halflings, so from hobbits essentially. And that led to a problem where if they weren't standing next to a human, you didn't know that they were actually halflings, because they just looked proportionately the same as a human, right? Because they'd gotten rid of this distinct features. So through 4th edition, same sort of thing, and then along comes 5th edition playtest, and John Shindaheady says that we've gotten feedback from people, and this is the design of the halflings that everybody voted for, and everybody looked at it and went, what the hell are those tiny weeny little thimble feet and hands? It's an absolute travesty. What the hell? No humanoid would evolve to have hands and feet that small. It's just ridiculous. Like, ridiculous. But he persevered with it, and that became the official design for the halflings in 5th edition, which I think maybe they'd swept under the rug a little bit. But you don't see any barefoot halflings in 5th edition. And that is a huge travesty, because it's very easy to make halflings look very distinctly different. Give them large feet and a portly belly, and, make them look like hobbits, okay? They've got brown or blondish or tawny curly hair, ruddy skin. They look like, farmers. Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, well, the Mind Flayers probably would Ceramorphosis a halfling if they had to. But they tend not to, because nobody wants to be a really short Mind Flayer. Because they don't make them taller. Hey, Seamus. Hey, thanks, Kikas Duke. Happy anniversary, by the way. My favourite part of the Cave Fisher vid is that story, including in those videos, is great inspiration to keep up the amazing work. That story came directly from Dragon Magazine. That wasn't my own work. That was written by the people that I mentioned who wrote it. But yeah, I'm more than happy to portray creatures in their natural environment in the form of stories, for sure. There is no clue in this live stream. This is a special anniversary live stream. I should have pointed that out from the very start. This is not part of the regular clues live streams. So if you're watching this far for the clues, sorry. Oh, nice. Okay. That's good to know, Josh. So, yeah. So, one of the things I want to concentrate on is just, talking about how to run a game. There's all sorts of monster-related foods. Yeah, you could have, like, the Dark Helmet figure from Spaceballs. It's essentially a really short, converted Hobbit Mind Flayer. Yeah, well, the 5e PHB art for the halflings is just a travesty. We all know this. So hopefully we can turn the tide back to, bring us back to hobbits as they should be. The interesting thing is, much like the rest of Tolkien's work, it's derivative of other earlier works. And I think you could actually plead a case that hobbits were around before Tolkien wrote The Hobbit and before Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings, because the use of the word hobbit was actually in use beforehand. It means a bumbling teenager, essentially. Hobbity horse, or no, Hobbity Bob, or something like that. Anyway, I'll talk about it in the video, the origin of the word hobbit. Thanks, Hoovgoon. Nice to see you. No politics, please, yeah. Tiny mind flayer with stilts, yeah. Big helmet. Made of crystals. A Spaceballs campaign essentially would be so easy to do in Spelljammer. What goes into building a Spelljammer ship? Does it have a magic core, or is it just an enchanted ship? Just curious. It does have a magic core. The main means of propulsion in most spelljamming vessels is the helm, which is essentially a magical artifact which a mage sits on and becomes one with the ship, and they channel magic through the ship to propel it, essentially. And while they do so, the ship feels like an extension of their body, even while they're talking to other people around them. There are other forms of propelling a ship. One is a forge, where it's essentially you take magical items and you throw them in there and literally burn them like a furnace to propel the ship. There's the dwarven forged ships, which is like a mountain citadel, which is driven by the magical religious fervor of dwarves that are heavily at work crafting, which actually channels divine power from Moradin, who is a god of crafting, which propels their ship through space. So their industry literally propels their ship through space. Mind flayers and other races of great evil, like the Nyogi, for instance, they will draw life force from creatures trapped in cells to power the ship, which actually kills them. Who is the largest producer of spelljamming vessels? Well, the Arcane are the largest, most widespread salespeople of helms, but we don't actually know who produces those helms. It's whether it's them or another power that they're getting them from. Yeah, life jammers seem like a nice solution as long as you're not stuck in one. The Ceres helm and the Death helm, yeah. Who or what made the crystal spheres? Could have been anybody. They could be acts of supreme magic that creates the crystal spheres. Magic tech is so alien-like in D&D. Yeah. Yes, Salvatore did keep to the classic halfling. There is a distinct passage in there where Regis is sitting in the crook of a tree and he's fishing for their panhead or knucklehead trout. And he's holding the fishing rod in his toes while he sits there and skirmishes and stuff. So yeah, and there's also a distinct passage where he's sneaking into a pirate cave down a chimney, and there's a distinct passage which says because he'd been tracking through the snow of the north, because it was like a really bad time of year to travel because blizzards and stuff, he was wearing shoes which protected his feet from the coals of at the bottom of the fireplace. Otherwise, normally he would have burnt his feet because he walks around barefoot all the time. So it's distinctly mentioned in there. Don't forget the pump. I haven't read much on the pump yet, so I'm not forgetting it. I just haven't got to it yet. What happens if a crystal sphere is destroyed? It cracks open and the atmosphere gets flooded out and mixed around with the phlogiston. The phlogiston flows in there. Oompa Loompas are not halflings. So when the phlogiston goes in there, that means that the gods go away. So essentially, if you crack the sphere and get rid of the sphere, it destroys the habitat of the gods, so they can't manifest on those worlds in there anymore. However, the planets themselves might not notice because they have an envelope of air around them anyway, which is sustained by the forests and stuff. So Yeah, it would look very weird from the perspective of the people inside the sphere when all of a sudden their sky turns into a rainbow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was sitting there holding the scrimshaw and fishing. Right, that's if the star is actually a flaming star. In the case of the Forgotten Realms, yeah, it would be, so the whole thing would explode. Hey, Gary. Hello, Brazil. Toxic crystals, yeah. So, when I'm planning a campaign, when you land your spelljamming vessel on a world, first rule is put it right next to where the adventure is happening. Why not? Why would you make them trek 100 miles through random encounters and stuff? It's boring. Put them right where the adventure is about to happen. Second rule is you don't have to get highly detailed on what's around that entire continent. You don't have to map the entire world. You just map what the characters see. So whatever they can see when they're flying over, you can give them a basic description of the land, the weather and stuff. And then when they land the ship, just the local environment that they're in. And then, of course, they're focused on whatever is drawing them into the adventure, that encounter area. So if they have a reason for being there, give them the clue for the reason right away. Do spelljammers work in all planes? Yeah, it depends. Like different planes have got different subjective realities. They can be divinely morphic. They can have atmospheres of their own. They can be like huge air-filled voids. Yeah, it really depends on the plane of existence. So you can't give a basic answer to that. If they can exist in those planes, then they will. Yeah, exactly. Just land them where they need to be. It's just like any movie or TV show or something like that. Where they land is where the action is. The Star Trek team beams down to exactly where the security guards get killed and the plot all resolves in a small area. Same thing with any sort of show like that. Could they go into the Command Conquer universe scenes? Yeah, I suppose so. June. Yep. You can represent all of these things in the crystal spheres. That's the whole point of having the crystal spheres is you can compartmentalize your themes. Ah, that's right. Like Moya from Farscape. By the power of plot. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so essentially it's a narrative. It's a narrative accepted game of it's a narrative device that everybody agrees that where you land is where the adventure happens. Otherwise, it's quickly going to become very boring to land on a planet and not know where to go. If the players have landed on a planet and you've given them no clues as to where the adventure is located, that's your failing as DM. You just put them exactly where the next encounter is. For God's sakes, give them something to do. Oof. The only place they can't go is Athos. Well, officially. If you want to give them a back door to Athos, by all means. The Ood from Doctor Who? Yeah, sure. A freed race of mind flayers that have sworn off eating brains, and they're not controlled by a master brain, or perhaps for some reason they've forgotten what the elder brain does to them, and they're trying to revive the elder brain. But when they do, they get taken over by it and become evil once more. Sorry, that was me slapping the. I put the bottle cap on the edge of the desk and just slam it off with my fist. You don't do that? Sorry. There are many crafts: watercrafts, aircrafts, spacecrafts, lovecrafts. Yep. Yeah, getting out of the plane of mist and the domain of the dark gods, that's tricky. Essentially, you're in their matrix. So once you've established that you're in this location, this is the basic environment. So make the environment interesting. If you've got weird terrain on that planet, that is where they land. Like, don't land them in the plains of outside Gilda. Put them in the fire swamp. Beer bottles in New Zealand tend to fight back. Yeah, they do. So yeah, put them in the most interesting terrain. Make it the location of a relationship of monsters, not a bunch of monsters that you put there. A relationship of monsters, because the monsters live there and interact with each other before the adventurers get there. Also, make it a time of disruption. So there's drama happening in that environment when the players get there. So it's in media res. So they arrive just as something dramatic is boiling over. So they become the linchpin which decides the fate of that environment either way. It's not just static until they get there and set it off, because that's kind of gives the feeling from the player's point of view that they're walking into booby traps all the time. So you put them in a situation which resolves as they get involved in it. They can choose not to get involved in it, but typically they'll get caught in the crossfire. They may want to avoid getting involved in it, which is the challenge in and of itself, particularly if the terrain they're moving through is difficult. So then you're in the encounter itself, and it blends seamlessly into what's going on. So it's like, shit's going down, we need some shelter, there's a hole in the rock, go in there, that's the dungeon, sort of thing. Is it? Yeah, the MSK. Yeah, I will be making MSK videos. Have I ever played D&D with someone who has ADHD and autism? Yeah, both, all of the above. I would say they're both challenging in their own rights. I'd say depending on the circumstances, autism is a little bit more difficult than ADHD. Yeah, from my personal perspective. It could also be because the people with autism generally were younger, so they just didn't have really good impulse control and social skills and things like that. And they tended to belittle other people because they just hadn't been taught yet not to do that. How would you handle a DM battle with a massive mobile creature that you won't really stop to fight? So essentially turn it into terrain, living terrain. So I like the idea of, in Star Wars, where Han Solo flies the Millennium Falcon into a creature. And then the challenge is getting out of there before it closes its mouth. Stephen Hawking. Yeah. Yep. So you can play out all that sort of stuff as well. The locals mistake you for a sky god. Or it turns out when you arrive, you've actually fulfilled a prophecy, and it's your presence which unlocks and does all this stuff. And you're like, wait a minute, is this actually real? Am I sort of some sort of a super being? If you get the player, the characters convinced that they're actually gods, you win. You can get them into some sort of a Groundhog Day situation where they've gone through a time warp. Or they shrink or enlarge in size unexpectedly because of space weirdness. Red NZ Blue is currently working on his next video right now. He's in radio silence as he works on it. The asteroid worm encounter, that's right. And what was inside the asteroid worm? Minox. Space parasites. So the worm was so big it had an atmosphere inside its guts that the Minox were living in. Then we got Han Solo's other movie appearance where he's got these great big slavering beasts inside his spaceship hull. My very next video, which I'm going to be releasing this week as a bonus video, kind of towards the end, towards the weekend, will feature a creature that can be used exactly like that. Yep, you arrive right in the middle of a civil war. That's right. Or your arrival wakens up creatures, much like Alien, where they land inside an egg chamber. Space weirdness. Yep, Gulliver's Travel. Other thing to do is mix and match stuff. So come up with one thing that you all know very well, say a gibbering mouther. Combine it with something else. Say, let's see, furry caterpillars. So now you've got a creature which is a collection of furry caterpillars which is sentient as a hive mind. It's like, how do you interact with that thing? Space hamsters, no, not in the halfling video, because that's typically a gnome thing, not a halfling thing. Gulliver's Travels. Gulliver? Gulliver. How about a dragon race that doesn't believe in gods? Yeah, sure. Yeah, the living flesh pinball things, yeah. Space madness. People are always trying to take my chocolate bar. My soap bar. Do gibbering mouthers absorb those they kill or just kill and maybe eat them? Jury's out on that one. They tend to dissolve them into acid. Oh, good. I'm glad you like the more modern ones, Scott. We put extra effort into the giant ones. Spared no expense. Bug dragons in D&D. Gibbering caterpillar. Ooh, I like that idea, Dragon Lord. Crew mutates into different races while in a new sphere, so it actually forces a form of reincarnation. High-tech, militant, sophisticated hobgoblin society. Yeah, absolutely. Like a Borg sort of thing. You can have the characters who wake up from hibernation pods. What happened? Don't know. Hibernation pods malfunctioned, wiped your memory. Or you could have that the characters are in hibernation pods and they keep trying to get out of the hibernation pods, and then every time they fail, they go back into a dreamscape, a matrix, which is actually another adventure. And inside the adventure, they have to unlock keys and things which are actually part of the computer program that switches off the computer program and releases them from the hibernation pods. Fairy dragons, yeah, you could use... I mean, you could very easily reskin fairy dragons to have chitin instead of scales and just be bug dragons, sure. Yeah, the Giant series really is like the early history of D&D on Forgotten Realms anyway. Hey, Overboard DM. Well, I'm going to shoot off, everybody. It's been awesome doing these live streams for the last 2 years. It is always an absolute pleasure talking to you all. Unfortunately, it doesn't often involve beer, but it should. Azeroth Rising, I will be making videos talking about spelljamming adventure ideas at some length. I may even produce some tables. Thanks, Hoovgoon. Would I ever make lore videos about famous individuals from a race, say like Azhag, leader of the Talents of Justice? Maybe. I mean, there are source books and stuff which talk about specific individuals. Yeah, I do get a lot of requests to make videos on famous people like Rastlin and other types. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe. We'll see. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this unscheduled stream. And I will catch you on the weekend, for sure.